Welcome to Immortal Works Flash Fiction Friday, Episode 49, Topaz, by Zachariah Bjorge, read by John Grundvig. Jacob reached out to the man in front of him, intending to get his attention, when a scream and a gunshot sounded from around the corner. The high-caliber weapon sounded like a grenade going off. The man in front of him started and turned, eyes wide with fear, and plunged a knife into Jacob's chest. A blue topaz ring slowly dulled on Jacob's finger as his life force began fading in tandem. He didn't feel the knife firmly planted in his chest. There was no pressure and no pain. For whatever reason, this fact amused him. As he smiled, a cough racked his body, and blood spattered on the handle of the blade. "Damn it!" His attacker, Daryl, muttered something unintelligible before collapsing to his knees and grasping at Jacob's jeans, apologizing over and over. "Jacob! Jacob! Daryl's sorry! Daryl's sorry! I take it back! Oh no, I take it back! Daryl takes it back!" "Daryl!" Jacob's voice cracked as he attempted to calm the man on the ground before him. "Daryl, hush. It's okay. You didn't know." Jacob coughed up more blood that sprayed again, out onto the knife handle as well as on the top of Daryl's bowed, shaking head. "No, no, 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 no! Daryl thought you were the guy! I was frightened!" he said, pleading his case. "I know." And he did know. It wasn't a platitude. He knew Daryl was completely loyal to him. Daryl had been frightened by the possibility of running into the guy from the moment Jacob let him in on his plan to erase the guy. And he had every reason to be frightened. The guy was deadly. The guy had many names, but Arthur Rames was the name he had been toting for the last 33 years. He liked it. Maybe that was why he had held on to it for as long as he did. To him, it sounded powerful, savvy, regal. Arthur paid for a sandwich. He didn't really care for tuna fish, but he was starving and that was all they had in the so-called deli case, and turned to exit the convenience store. Just as he did, a man in a ball cap and large dark sunglasses charged in, brandishing a knife and yelling. He shoved Arthur backward. "Get the hell back! Get on the floor!" Arthur smiled at the man and said, "Yeah, sure thing, bud." The man was perturbed by Arthur's flippancy and shoved him again. "Now! Get on the floor!" The movement of the cashier reaching for her phone caught the man's eye. He pulled a gun with his other hand and waved her back. She did as she was bidden. As Arthur knelt on the floor, the man turned his gaze back to him. "Empty your pockets! Now!" Arthur slowly reached toward his pocket, and as he did, the man's eyes fell to the green topaz ring on his finger. "The ring! Give it to me!" Arthur sighed. "Man, I can't give you this ring. Besides, it's not worth a thing. Honest." "You give me that ring or you're dead!" Arthur's gaze narrowed and his playful smile disappeared. "If I give you this ring, you're dead." Jacob stepped backward and rested against the brick wall, painfully scraping his back as he slid down into a sitting position. Daryl crawled over to Jacob, tears in his sad eyes. "Jacob, Jacob, Jacob! Are you mad at Daryl? I'm sorry." "Daryl, please. I need you to listen to me." Jacob's tone began edging on impatience with his simple friend as his strength waned. "Stop talking." As if slapped, Daryl immediately ceased speaking. "Thank you, my friend. Now, I have something I would like to give you. A token of our friendship, if you will. You have been instrumental in assisting me track Ezekiel, and I want to repay you." A childish glint of greed began to form on Daryl's dirty face. Yes, it is very valuable, this gift." Daryl's intent gaze broke to Jacob's hand. I see you already have an inkling as to what it is." Jacob smiled warmly. "Take it. It's yours." The man screamed at Arthur. "You obviously don't know who's in charge here!" He waved the gun wildly as he stepped closer. Arthur sized him up and looked thoughtful. 6 foot or so. Good build. What are you, in your 20s? The man became perplexed as Arthur's tone became conversational again. "What the hell are you saying? Just give me that damn ring, man!" Arthur sighed in resignation. "I guess it could be worse." "Well, Arthur?" he asked, speaking to himself. "We had a good run." He looked directly at the man with the gun. "And what is your name?" In his confusion, the man found himself answering. "Seth?" Seth's confusion broke and fueled his anger. "Oh, I'm done messing with you." He pressed the barrel of his gun directly into Arthur's forehead and thumbed back the hammer. Arthur inhaled deeply, started to scream a warrior's scream, and then quickly stood up. Seth fired. Arthur dropped to the ground, dead. Without missing a beat, Seth checked Arthur's pockets, took his wallet, and slid the green topaz ring from Arthur's finger. He whirled to the cashier and ordered her to clean out the register. She complied. Daryl sat crying next to Jacob's now lifeless body and muttered another apology. He clutched the blue topaz ring in his filthy palm. He knew he needed to leave. He had to get away in case the police came. Or even worse, the guy. He should get home. But he felt terrible leaving Jacob here, even if he was dead. Daryl didn't like the dark, so he wouldn't leave his friend alone in it either. His attention turned to his clenched fist, which he opened to reveal the ring. He slipped it on just as he noticed a man squatting down further along the alleyway. His brain seemed to catch fire, and he began to shriek. Seth busted through the convenience store door into the night air and turned the corner into an alleyway. He looked about to ensure he was alone. All he saw was what looked to be two bums sitting halfway down the alley, probably drunk. He hunkered down to sort through his takings and pulled the ring out of his pocket. It was dull, duller than it had seemed when he first saw it. He tried it on. Pain instantaneously scorched the inside of his skull, like a molten dagger that had been stabbed into his frontal lobe and then exploded. Seth fell to the ground and screeched in sheer agony. It seemed he could also hear screaming going on around him as well. Beneath the pain, he was dimly aware of losing something, but couldn't remember what it was. Then he knew. His name. He couldn't remember his name. He frantically began scouring the resources of his mind for his own name, only to find that he was losing memories. Yet he couldn't be sure because they were no longer there to remember. Just as his panic began to set in, he suddenly began to remember times that were not his to remember. He began recalling his own wedding, yet he had never been married. But that couldn't be right because he remembered it. His wife. She died. All the pain from that moment resurfaced and multiplied the physical torture his brain was experiencing. Her funeral. He remembered. He saw himself standing at her grave, only it wasn't him. Not really. It was who he was becoming. He saw the face of the man he remembered being, and the eyes were that of the man he had just shot not minutes ago. But that was impossible. And just as that thought crossed Seth's seared mind, it was gone. His soul was gone. In its place materialized the soul of the man formerly known as Arthur Rames, formerly known as Ezekiel. The pain ceased. Ezekiel stood shakily and attempted to get his bearings. He heard moaning down the alleyway and squinted in the dark to see what it was. A homeless man stood up, steadying himself on the brick wall. Their eyes locked. "You!" Jacob snarled. "Ezekiel, I will end you!" Ezekiel smiled roguishly and gave Jacob the finger. He then looked down at himself quickly and back at Jacob. "I'm going by the name Seth now. Might want to log it in that big brain of yours. Then you might want to catch a shower. That is, unless you really want to do this right now." Jacob gnashed his teeth and rushed to Seth, balling his hands into fists. Thanks for listening. If you have a submission, please send it to submissions@immortal-works.com.